you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on verbs. So, we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on verbs, right? So, in our previous lesson, yes, we also did verbs. So, now we are going to do a continuation on verbs, right? But focusing on other lessons that is related to verbs, right? So we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on verbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts. Language arts, and then grade 7. Once we have selected the subject of language arts, grade 7, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of verbs. And as you can see, the chapter of verbs is quite lengthy, and that is why we are doing it over a period of a few days. This lesson, we focus on irregular past tense, right? So verbs, but the irregular past tense. And we said with the irregular past tense, there is no rule that you follow, for example, like ed or adding a d when we are writing that specific verb in the past, right? So with irregular past tense, so for example, let's say with regular past tense, we maybe add an ed, for example, to show the verb in the past tense. So if I say that now I watch a movie in the past tense, I watched a movie, right? Which means that we just added ed to the verb watch in order to show the verb in the past tense. But when it comes to irregular past tense, right, then there's no rule that we need to follow. You're just gonna have to basically know the what the verb is. So for example, if I say I run the race. Now I run the race. Then in the past, I ran the race, right? You see, so there's no ed that I followed or d that I followed or specific rule that I followed in order to show that this is what you need to follow in order to show that it is the verb in the past tense, right? Irregular past tense is like the wording also changes. Drive, drove, right? Ring, rang, right? Like I said, run, ran. If you write something now, I wrote it in the past tense. And those are irregular past tense verbs, and that is what we did in our previous lesson. So today, in today's lesson, right, we are focusing, our chapter that we will be focusing on is verbs. Our subject is English, which is language arts. Grade 7, and the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today under the chapter of verbs is the simple past, present, and future tense review. Then we're also going to form progressive verb tenses as well as we're going to form perfect verb tenses. And that's going to be our lessons today under the chapter of verbs. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. All right, so when it comes to the simple past, present, and future tense, right? So past tense verbs, right? It tells you about something that has already happened. So something that is in the past, it happened already, right? So the past tense verbs, it tells you about something that has happened already. And when it comes to the past tense, let's say regular verb, then we just add an ed to form the past tense of most of our verbs, right? So we either add an ed to our verb, or let's say to most of our verbs, right? And that is to show the verb in the past tense, the action in the past tense. But if a verb already ends, say if your verb ends in E, all right? So if your verb ends in an E, then all you do is you just add a D. You don't still add another E on top of it. You don't add ED, you just add a D in order to show the past tense verb, right? And we call these actually regular past tense verbs. So where we add an ED or a D to form the verb in the most, like the in the past tense. And if a verb ends in a short vowel and a singular consonant, right? Then we just add an ED. And if the consonant ends in Y, then we change the Y to I and we add ED. And we are going to make a few examples about those ones, right? And if we look at a few examples here at the bottom of the past tense verbs, right? Once again, the past tense verbs, it tells us about something that has already happened. So something that has already happened, it is in the past. Something that has already happened, right? Example, Sam changed his clothes. So changed his clothes, right? So they said that we need to just add an ed to form the past tense of most of our verbs. And in this case, it says changed, and an ed was added to that specific verb to show now that the verb is in the past tense. We watched the game. Watched is in the past tense, and then ed was added. The audience clapped loudly, and there we have clapped, and an ed was added to that specific word also to show the verb within the past tense. So clapped, watched, and changed. And as you can see, if you look at, let me rewrite those words. Look at the first word, change, right? Change is just a verb. And as you can see, change ends in an E, right? And remember we said that if the verb already ends in an E, we just add a D. And as you can see, we just added a D for changed, right? Whereas in this case of watch, right, we added an ED to that specific word in order to show the past tense. So an ed was added to that specific verb, sorry. And then if the verb ends in an e, we just add a d. And then we also have future tense, right? And the future tense, it tells us about something that is going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, it is going to happen, right? It is going to happen, or it must still happen, right? And when it comes to the future tense, right, verbs, it tells you about something that is going to happen. So it tells you about something that is going to happen. So the future tense verbs, it tells you about something that is going to happen. So we basically add will to form the future tense of all of our verbs. So if something is going to happen, and then we need to add the word will to show that something must still happen or something is going to happen, right? Because we are basically speaking in the future. Which means that if we look at the first, let's say the first example, it says, the boys will finish later. So they will finish later, right? They're not done yet, but they will finish later, right? It's like saying, give them a break now, they will finish later. Tanya will speak at the conference. And will speak at the conference can either be tomorrow, can be next week, can be next month, right? Depending on when the conference is going to be. But Tanya will speak at the conference. It has not happened yet. It's not happening as yet, but it will happen in the future. And that is basically our simple past and simple future tense, right? Within the past, we add an ed to show the past tense verb, or if the verb already ends in an e, we just add a d to show the past tense verb. So in the future, we just add will, because in the future tense, it shows something that is going to happen, right? And we just add will to form the future tense of all our verbs. All right. Now we're going on to our progressive tenses. And progressive tenses, it describes ongoing action. Progressive tenses, it describes ongoing action, right? So ongoing action, it usually ends in ing. That shows ongoing action. So progressive tense, it describes ongoing action, and it tells about something that is, was, or will happen, or will be happening. And to form the progressive tenses, right? To form the progressive tenses, we need to use a form of the helping verb to be with a main verb that is ending in ing. So in order to perform the progressive verb tenses, we need to use the form of the helping verb, which is to be with the main verb ending in ing. Right, so just to recap again, we see that progressive tense, it describes ongoing action, and it tells about something that is, was, or will be happening. So it can be progressive tenses in the past, present, or future, right? And the present progressive tenses, it tells you about something that is happening right now. So present progressive tenses, it tells us about something that is happening right now. And the if something is happening right now, right, then it uses a present tense form of the helping verb, which is either is, which is am, or are, right? So when it comes to the present progressive tense, then it tells us about something that is happening right now in the present, and the present is right now. And it uses a present tense form of the helping verb to be, which is either is, am, or are. And if we look at an example, right, at an example of the present progressive tenses, then we can say Julie is. Then we can say Julie is playing basketball right now. So is playing. And is playing, it refers to, let's say, one person, like singular, doing something. If we were to say the boys, referring to, let's say, more than one boy, right? Then we could have said that the boys, then we say are, and are is our helping verb. So the boys are playing, let's say, football. So we can say they are playing football, right? And this basically shows the present progressive tense, right? Shows that something is happening right now, and it uses the present tense form of the helping verb, which is, am, are. So is refers to, let's say, one person doing something. Are refers to more than one person doing something. Then we have the past progressive tense. And the past progressive tense, it tells us about something that was happening in the past. It happened already, was happening. So the past progressive tense, it tells us about something that was happening already, meaning it happened already. It was happening already. So when it comes to the past progressive tenses, right, then it uses a past tense form of the helping verb, which is either was referring to one person doing something or were referring to more than one person doing something. So once again, the past progressive tense, it tells about something that was happening in the past. And it uses the past tense form of the helping verb, which is either was or were. And like I say, we use was if we're referring to one specific person, right? Like a singular person doing an action or that did an action. And then we refer to were. Oh, and were is referred to when more than one person, let's say, does a specific thing, right? For example, Seth was talking to Mrs. Jones when the phone rang. So if we look at the sentence, it says, Seth was talking to Mrs. Jones when the phone rang. So was talking. If we want to make an example of were, so if we were to repeat the sentence, we can say the boys, because it refers to more than one boy, were oopsie, was correct, words incorrect. So were. So the boys were, let's say, talking on the phone. So which means that were refers to more than one person. It's like a plural form, right? Unless we are to say is, then it means that, it is singular. It either refers to, for example, me, it refers to the partner or something that does something, or the next person that does something. So that is basically the progressive tenses. And we said progressive tenses, it describes ongoing action. And usually with the ongoing action, it ends in ing. All right, so we say that we are doing our tutorial lessons on aplusstudents.ca. So now let's go to aplusstudents.ca, and we're going to simple, past, present, and future tense. So we're not going to dwell much on it because we have basically explained it. So here it says that the past tense verbs, it tells you about something that has already happened, and we add an ed to form the past tense of most of our verbs, right? And we say that if the verb ends with a consonant Y, we change the Y to an I, we add ed, and then we have almost like IED. And an example of that is qualify. We write it there. Qualify. Now we are qualified. And we added an IED. Right? So which means that Alex qualified for the finals. And we said some verbs are irregular, right? meaning that they do not follow any rules. You're just going to have to remember the past tense form of that verb. For example, ate. Peter ate the last cookie, right? And that is in the past. Eat is the present, and ate is in the past. They keep busy all afternoon, and in the past tense, they kept busy all afternoon. And then we said when it comes to future tense, right? And then we basically add will to form the future tense of that verb. We add will. So the word will show the future tense, right? It will basically show the tense and in the future. And it shows us that something is going to happen. For example, the boys will finish later. They're still going to do that. And Tanya will speak at the conference, meaning that it can either be tomorrow, it can be next week, it can be next month, but she will still have to speak at the conference. And that is the present, the simple past, present, and future tense, right? So now let's go to our test. So we're going on to a test on simple past, present, and future tense. And remember with the past tense, we just add an ed, or we change the consonant y, add an ied. We need to complete the sentence with the present tense form of the verb. The present tense form, remember the present tense, it's happening now. Did you know that a water molecule, do we say, consists of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? Or do we say consist of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? So we need to say if it's consists or consist. Did you know that the water molecule consists or consists of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? All right, so if we select the correct one, okay, let's choose consists. Because usually they say if you refer to a singular, you say one thing, then we add consists. So consists is correct. So well done. We need to write the sentence within the future tense. Future tense. The snow, the forecast is calling the colder temperatures later this afternoon. So the precipitation, do we say turn to snow or will turn to snow? So the forecast is calling for colder temperatures later this afternoon. So the precipitation turn to snow or will turn to snow. This is now in the future tense. So we can then say will turn because we say that we add will in front of the verb in order to show the future tense or the tense in the future. So we can say will turn because that shows the tense in the future. And will turn is correct. So well done. Doctor, tomorrow, Mr. Davis, sorry. So tomorrow, Mr. Davis, this is in the future tense, future tense. So tomorrow, Mr. Davis will meet with his publisher to discuss the release of an upcoming novel. So tomorrow, Mr. Davis will meet with his publisher to discuss the release of an upcoming novel. And if we select the correct answer, especially in the future tense, yes, we will say will meet. And will meet is correct. Nathan and Nathan and Jenny, do we say enjoy traveling around Europe and seeing the different buildings and monuments, or Nathan and Jenny enjoying traveling around Europe and seeing a different building? So we can say Nathan and Jenny, they enjoy traveling around Europe and seeing the different buildings and monuments. And enjoy is correct. Well done. And now we need to complete the sentence with the past tense form of the verb. After a considerable a considerable number of edits and rewrites, the author finally, do we say publish or published, his book about the history of architecture. This is in the past tense. The author finally publish or published. So if we are going to write this in the past tense, then we can say published. So he finally published his book about the history of architecture. And published is correct. Well done. All right, so that is the simple past, present, and future tense. Now we're going to form the progressive verb tense. And when it comes to progressive verb tenses, and then the verb, it ends in ing to show the ongoing action. So the progressive verb tense, our verb, it ends in ing to show ongoing action. So we said the progressive tense, it describes ongoing action and it tells about something that is, was, or will be happening. So we say that with the progressive verb tense, in order to form the progressive tenses, we need to use of the following, let's say of the helping verb, which is to be with the main ending, which is ing. Then we have the present progressive tense. The present progressive tense, right? And the present progressive tense, it tells us about something that is happening right now. It's things that is happening now in the present. And it uses the present form of the helping verb to be. So we're using either is, am, or we're using are. And we made an example of Julie is playing. And we made an example of are when we say that the boys are playing football. So in the present progressive tense, it is also the same as when we use the helping verb e, we refer to one person, we refer to are, we refer to two or more people. Then we have the past progressive tense. It tells about something that was happening in the past. So something that was happening but in the past. And it uses a past tense form of the helping verb to be, which is either was or were. And also, like I said, the same or similar to, for example, the present progressive tense, the same with the past progressive tense. We use was to refer to either a singular person or singular thing, and we use were if we are referring to more than one person or thing. For example, Seth was talking to Mrs. Jones when the phone rang. So we use was or we use were. And like I say, that refers to either singular person or plural. And then we have the future tense, the future progressive tense. It tells about something that will be happening in the future. It will be happening in the future, meaning that it did not happen as yet, but it will be happening in the future. For example, Karen will be visiting next year. So Karen will be visiting next year, June. Meaning that Karen did not visit as yet, but she will be visiting next year in June. Right? So will be is our future progressive tense. And these are our progressive tenses where we say that the word ends in ing and it also follows or forms the helping verb or forms of the helping verb to be, right? So the main verb ends in ing. And we spoke about the present progressive tense, past progressive tense, as well as the future progressive tense. Let's go to our test. We need to complete the sentence with the past progressive form of the verb. Past. So we need to find the past progressive form of the verb, right? Dad and Uncle Reed, do they say, were swapping stories on the porch and didn't realize until the street lamps flickered off and the sky began to brighten that they'd been talking all night? Or Dad and Uncle Reed swap stories on the porch? Should they swap stories or were swapping stories? Remember, we use the helping verb also. So do we say were swapping or swap stories? Remember, this is the progressive tense, right? It shows ongoing action and we add ing. So we add ing as well as the helping verb, right? Because remember we said that we use the helping verbs for in the past tense is either was or were, and was is referring to one person and were refers to if two or more people are, for example, either discussing or doing something. So we can say they were swapping stories on the porch. So we have a helping verb, which is were, and our main verb, which is swapping, which ends in ing. So well done. Were swapping is correct. Next Tuesday at noon. This is now the present progressive form of the verb. Present. So next Tuesday at noon, Miss Johnston host or is hosting a meet and greet event for all incoming freshmen. And in addition to the opportunity to socialize, attendees will be given information about extracurricular activities. So we are completing the sentence with the present progressive tense, right? So we have our helping verb followed by the main verb that ends in an ing. And we can say that Miss Johnson is hosting a meet and greet event. So well done. Is hosting is correct. And Professor Jensen will be presenting or present a summary of the 7-month mission of NASA's Lunar Atmosphere and Dust Environment Explorer, which ended with the international crashing of the vessel on the moon. We need to complete the sentence with the future progressive form of the verb. So, future progressive form of the verb. So, is it will be presenting in the future or present? So Professor Jensen will be presenting or present. And if we were to choose the future progressive form of the verb, then we will choose will be presenting because will, it tells us about the future. So will be presenting, well done, is correct. Will be presenting is correct. Let's do the last one. A recent study. So, a recent study shows that American adults, this is now the present progressive form of the verb. So the recent studies shows that American adults consume or are consuming more fewer calories and eating out less. That decline is being hailed as a victory in the fight against obesity. So do we say consume fewer calories and eating out less, or are consuming fewer calories and eating out less? Remember, we are using the helping verb, right? Which is either is, am, or are, followed by the main verb that ends in ing. That is the progressive verb. So the progressive verb, it ends in ing. So which means that if we are going to choose the present progressive tense, right? It says a recent study shows that American adults are consuming, because we are showing ongoing action. Remember, present, the progressive forms of the verb, it shows ongoing action. And we have the helping verb followed by the main verb that ends in ing, right? So are consuming, right? All right, so we focused on the simple past, present, and future tense, right? And we said that the simple past, present, and future tense, it basically shows the action that either happened in the past tense, in the present tense, or in the future tense, right? And then the same with past progressive, the progressive tenses, right? That ends in ing, that shows ongoing action. So this is now the end of our lesson on verbs. Thank you very much for joining our lesson on verbs and for interacting. And I really hope you're going to have a good day further. Goodbye.